The Hagman and Hagman Report for today. It is a tremendous Tuesday edition. It's Tuesday, April 7th, 2015. I'm Doug Hagman in studio with my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher, Joe Hagman. Together, we are the Hagman and the Hagman Report. We do broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. We're simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at thehagmanandhagmanreport.com. Our primary platform for archival purposes is BTR, Blog Talk Radio. We are simulcast on a few terrestrial stations as well throughout the United States. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's program. By the way, our home base, hagmanandhagman.com. That's hagmanandhagman.com. From there, you can find many great links to to things like the Common Sense Show and Steve Quayle and other locations. And we're going to be putting up some fresh content here very shortly. We're also in the process of updating our past show page. There you can access our MP3s and our SoundCloud files as well, which are a little bit less in size than BTR's. Or you can go directly to SoundCloud or to BTR and get the MP3s yourselves. Anyway, but I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight in these dire times. You know, last night's show really kind of really said a lot, Joe. Welcome. It's great to have you here. Last night's show, that was a very deep, somber show to me. What did you think?
No, I thought it was an eye-opening show. And the Operation Drill Jade Helm 15 is a topic of contention and uncertainty, and we got to get to the bottom of it. And as many voices and opinions and people that we have on it, the better.
And I still contend what we're not seeing is perhaps the more dangerous part of things. And if you look at Jade Helm, and everyone's saying, well, just calm down. I mean, the mainstream corporate media, just, hey, relax. And they're kind of chuckling at those people who have a problem with this. And I just wonder, would the mainstream media have that same attitude 50 years ago? Or say around the time of Kent State or around Vietnam. I mean, think back into the early 70s, perhaps. Or even into the, we'll say, early 60s or late 50s. How far has this mental programming progressed to the point where we're accepting this kind of activity on American soil? And if people say, well, I mean, geez, there's more to that Jade Helm. I mean, there's more news other than Jade Helm. You're absolutely right. But are we asking the proper questions about this military exercise? Half the battle in a courtroom is knowing what questions to ask. It's the same with an investigation. When you're investigating any case, and you're talking to someone, whether it's a witness or a suspect, if you don't ask the right questions, you're not going to get the proper answers. And if you don't know which questions to ask, well, then you've got no hope of getting the right answers unless you stumble over them. So I think what we have to do, at least in this case, is we have to assimilate as much information as possible, grab as much information as possible, and work from there. I don't think we can assume anything anymore. I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing. And I also think that we have to watch very carefully the run-up of events that leads up to July 15th and forward from there through September. But look at them, individually as well as collectively, microscopically and macroscopically. I think now is the time that we have to keep our 360-degree watch going. That's just me. I'm not. I'm more concerned right now about the enemy within than the enemy that people are pointing to. And when I say people, I'm not saying our guests or anything like that. What I'm saying is, you've got Oh, you've got my goodness, the ISIS crowd. You've got, I mean, how many enemies do we have? We have got a lot more than we had a decade ago. That's for sure. So I guess my concern is and I mentioned this yesterday. Paul McGuire wrote Mass Awakening, and in that Mass Awakening, it's a fantastic book. I've got to tell you, I couldn't talk about the book too much until, although I had a chance to see the book, I couldn't talk about the book until it was released in print and delivered. You just don't do that. But he points out that he points out that the super elite, they've got no moral restraints. And Joe, he's going to get into some news here shortly, but if you look at even before that, or even to precede that, if you look at how we, the American people, the people of the West, have been groomed into accepting falsehoods as truth, it really is an eye opener. And Paul McGuire does reference that the intellectual territory we are in right now is, society's last great taboo. Talking about things like the truth and the meaning of life is society's new pornography, and it's almost completely censored. Society will now allow you to indulge your mind in almost anything, even things that were once considered obscene or forbidden. Today, the only thing forbidden is the truth, and especially the truth about the meaning and purpose of life, along with the real nature of reality. And that includes events like Jade Helm. That includes events like the Trade Center attacks, anything and everything. But when you start asking questions, it is extremely threatening to those who control our world. And, above all, those who control us, they want the average person to think that they're truly free, that we are truly free. And this is key here, I think. And that they can think about anything that they want, but you're free to think about anything you want. You're free to talk about anything you want. How many times have you heard this? This is America. I can say and think and do what I want, right? Well, as Paul McGuire states, this is a scientifically engineered delusion because the average person's mind has been totally programmed without us realizing it. And people have been programmed to think on a very narrow bandwidth of information. They only use a very small fraction of the neurological pathways that transmit thoughts and ideas into our brains. Now think about that for a moment. It's like, having dams put up on both sides of the river and then closing the dam doors. Notice I said dam doors, right? Yeah, go ahead and chuckle now. No, it kind of narrowing the waterway or that pathway of thought. And Paul McGuire talks about this being a firewall as opposed to a dam. But there you have it. And he talks about the hive mind, which is quickly evolving. And Joe, you know what? We mentioned yesterday about the article in Drudge Report, Tech Titans Plan to Defy Death. This appeared on Easter Sunday. This is Washington Post. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Yes, it is. And we'll get into that article. Tech Titans' latest project, Defying Death. For centuries, and this is from the Washington Post article that you're referring to that was on the head of Drudge. For centuries, explorers have searched the world for the fountain of youth. Today's billionaires believe they can create it using technology and data.
Man, I'm going to tell you something. It's ridiculous. No, I don't have to do that.
Okay.
We're just talking, folks. We're talking amongst us, between us.
Got new sheets here for.
See, here's what I do. It's kind of like rearranging the furniture on a visually impaired person. Okay, I come in. I have all kinds of we have these forms to fill out, so I put things on the forms, and they're not exactly the same kind of forms as we had before, and I tweak them a little bit, and I think I might have input some information in the wrong slot, but that's all right. Let me go ahead and talk. I want to just double check, because since you mentioned that, now you got me wondering if I made a mistake here on something.
Well, we have a lot going on today. There is an explosion at a power plant, which led to a number of power outages in D.C. and surrounding areas. Problems at a Maryland electrical station caused widespread power outages across the nation's capital Tuesday, affecting the White House, the Capitol, museums, train stations, and other sites. Many of the outages were brief, but some were longer in forced evacuations. Officials said mechanical failures at the transfer station led to the outages, and terrorism was not suspected. Tens of thousands of customers lost power. At the White House, the interruption lasted only a few seconds before backup generators kicked on. The complex quickly went back into regular power. Electricity in the press briefing room could be dipped around lunchtime, briefly darkening cubicles and blackening TV screens. White House spokesman Josh Earnest said that he was with President Obama in the Oval Office when the power blip occurred, and they didn't take notice anything unusual had happened. This from CBS Local Washington.
Greg Evenson and Steve Quayle, didn't they talk about the definite... Oh, you know what? Dave Hodges was talking about this too. There was an outage that took place in Arizona. And I think Dave Hodges reported on it during one of his shows and talked about it, or reported on it on his website. But there was a power outage that took place in Arizona. And here's the odd thing about this, and I got this from not just Mr. Hodges, but a second person as well. Someone had dug up buried cable, and actually took. You just can't take like a power saw or a hacksaw or just a normal saw and cut through these cables. Someone had to know what they were doing and actually cut through some pretty serious cabling underground. They had to dig it up undetected, and then they had to actually sever the cables. And this caused internet and, I believe, cell phone and terrestrial phone outages for some time. And this is, I believe, 3 weeks ago now. And you'll find reports about this on the internet. But think about this in D.C., and you've got to wonder, too, given the headlines, is it reasonable to wonder, is this perhaps, even though they say, well, it's not terrorist-related. Well, it doesn't have to be terrorist-related. I mean, my goodness, it could be. We have to come up with a new phrase.
Well, they said that there was
enemy-related.
During this power outage, that it could have been some kind of explosion or piece of debris that caused this. But in an even bigger story, which is on the front of Drudge right now, the headline from CNN is how the U.S. thinks Russia hacked the White House. It's not just the White House, it's the State Department,
right,
the White House, the Post Office, and the National Weather Service. But it goes on to say in this article from CNN, Russian hackers behind the damaging cyber intrusion of the State Department in recent months used to penetrate sensitive parts of the White House computer system, according to U.S. officials briefed on the investigation. While the White House has said the breach only affected an unclassified system, that description belays the seriousness of the intrusion. The hackers had access to sensitive information such as real-time, non-public details of the president's schedule. While such information is not classified, it is still highly sensitive and prized by foreign intelligence agencies, U.S. officials say. The White House in October said it noticed suspicious activity in the unclassified network that serves the executive office of the president. The system had been shut down periodically to allow for security upgrades. The FBI, Secret Service, U.S. intelligence agencies are now all involved in investigating this breach, which they consider among the most sophisticated attacks ever launched against the United States government or their systems. The intrusion was routed through computers around the world, as hackers often do, to hide their tracks, but investigators found telltale codes and other markers that they believe point to hackers working for the Russian government. National Security Council spokesman Mark Stroll did not confirm Russia's hack, but he did say that any such activity is something we take very seriously. In this case, as we made clear at that time, we took immediate measures to evaluate and mitigate the activity. He said, "As been our position, we are not going to comment on this article's attribution to the specific actors."
Now,
So the president, the president's sensitive information about his schedule and other information from the White House, as well as 4 other government agencies, apparently were hacked. And this is not anything new, as it talks about in this article. This happened since October,
right.
With the U.S. State Department. Now, today they believe the White House was hacked by, and watching the video that's on the part of this article, it said that malware had been attributed to Russian hackers, and that was what the tie that led them back to Russia.
So, okay, just to be clear, and so everyone is clear on this, it's the insertion of malware into
through emails, phishing emails. They said. It says.
Oh man,
as in many
can't
hacks,
believe
investigators
that.
believe the White House intrusion began with a phishing email that was launched using State Department email accounts that the hacker had taken over.
But by the way, phishing is PH.
Yeah,
not
PHISHING.
Right, it's phishing, meaning it's not fishing like a fishing expedition.
James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, said so many times the Chinese and others get access to our system just by pretending to be someone else and then asking for access, and someone gives it to them, Clapper says. But it goes on to say the ferocity of the Russian intrusions in recent months caught U.S. officials by surprise, leading to a reassessment of the cybersecurity threat as the U.S. and Russia increasingly confront each other over issues ranging from the Russian aggression in Ukraine to the U.S. military operations in Syria.
See, okay, there you go now. Now we're getting, I think, to the heart of the matter. As I said at the beginning of the program, it's not... you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to know what the correct questions are to ask. So, in this case, what are going to be the results? Because anyone can say, "Well, the Russians did this," or "the Chinese did this." Remember, who got blamed for the Sony hack?
Yeah, well, it was North Korea.
Right. That's what they said, correct? But there was not one scintilla of evidence.
Right.
With the Sony hack, but yet they got blamed. Well, what happened as a result of that? What was the result? What took place? It demonized North Korea. Not that they needed North Korea to be demonized, but don't forget, North Korea is a proxy state of where? Of China. So, in a very roundabout way, you're pointing the finger at China. In this case, this is going directly to Russia. And I would stipulate, or I would state without reservation, that this renegade in chief and his administration, or his band of renegades, are doing everything in their power to demonize Russia and everything Russia stands for, well beyond what's needed. But the intention here, I believe, is to provoke World War III. This is not to elevate Putin at all, but I think that I think this is what we're seeing. I think that we have to take a look at everything from the power outage in the White House to the hacking which occurred. Now, just to be clear, this is not new. It's newly reported. It's not new. After this investigation, they said, okay, it's malware by phishing emails. I'm not sure the White House is that susceptible. Phishing emails that would carry a malware type virus or payload, and that's just me. But certainly, it would be most convenient to blame it on Russia, especially right now, given the tense nature of the extension of the Cold War. And I think that both sides are attempting to fund what is upcoming, what's coming up, and that's World War III. I mean, let me just say this: global elite are going to be funding both sides of what's coming up, and we know that. But I think that everything we're seeing are little bits and pieces to hasten up that schedule. But by the way, do we mention Stan Deyo is going to be on the second hour? Did you mention that?
No, but he will be.
Okay.
He'll be on with us coming up here in 40 minutes, and there's some interesting things that we want to get into. I don't know what he has. I haven't checked out his show images page to see if he has anything up there, but I don't know if you saw this too. There was and this was up yesterday. There was an odd black circle left in the
Yeah,
sky.
I saw that. Folks, did you see that?
And it definitely was some kind of remnant of looked like something was in the sky and kind of shot out of there, and it left a big black circle of exhaust, if you will.
Well, in this, okay, folks, if you didn't see this, this occurred over in one of the Eastern Bloc countries. I don't recall which one it was, Kurdistan or it was over there. But having said that, just imagine like I would take a rubber band, kind of a round, or even like one of those hair things, that not the scrunchies, but the hair bands, and hold it at arm's length from you, and that's what it reminded me of. It didn't have any, it didn't have a strong geometric shape in terms of a circle or an oval. It had some, I think, how would you describe it?
It was like I said, some kind of exhaust, but it was a black circle of smoke that remained in the sky and slowly disintegrated as the atmosphere took it away. But, I've seen similar videos with here we go. Here's the article with white clouds looking to be in a circular shape. Okay, a mysterious blazing circle is seen in space. ALMA captures Einstein's ring 12 billion light years away in its highest resolution images yet.
I'm not sure is that the same one? Are you sure?
Well, maybe not.
Because the verbiage on that doesn't sound familiar. This was more of a hey, it's a UFO kind of thing right here.
Yeah, it was in the sky,
as opposed to deep space. But anyway,
I don't know. I guess I didn't expect to see two articles about some mysterious blazing circle in the sky on Dredge in the same day. But I'll see if I can find it here. I'll go through the history because I did watch this yesterday, and
a lot of weird things happening with respect.
I want to get into this. There's the court moles revealing secret government plan to cut cell phone service. Fed's SOP 303 mobile phone kill switch policy would endanger public if disclosed. A federal appeals court is asking the Obama administration to explain why the government should be allowed to keep its secret plan to shutter mobile phone service during critical emergencies, quote unquote, for the critical emergencies. The Department of Homeland Security came up with a plan known as Standing Operating Procedure 303 after cellular phones were used to detonate explosives targeting a London public transportation system. SOP 303 is a powerful tool in the digital age. It spells out the unified voluntary process for the orderly shutdown and restoration of wireless service during critical emergencies, such as the threat of radio-activated improvised explosive device. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit in February sided with the government and ruled that the policy did not need to be disclosed under the Freedom of Information Act request from the Electronic Privacy Information Center. The court agreed with the government's citation of a FOIA exemption that precludes disclosure if doing so could reasonably be expected to endanger the life or physical safety of any individual.
And to stop there, because I've got the same document right in front of me here. What does that even mean? Okay, how could this reasonably? I mean, I know what the sentence means, but how could this disclosure reasonably be expected to endanger the safety of Americans, or our lives, or safety, or how can this be? Because first of all, this was a DHS plan, or is a DHS plan, Standing Operating Procedure 303. And based on, as you mentioned or alluded to, the use of cellular telephones to detonate explosives targeting the London public transportation system, which we had disclosed early on our website back in 2004, 2005. Remember when everyone was buying those cell phones, the track phones? Remember that? And they were shipping them over to Iraq at that time, and Afghanistan at that time, to be used as detonation devices and methods for roadside bombs.
Also, what they're citing here in the article was the BART system out of San Francisco. It was the Bay Area Rapid Transit System and they were one of the first known local municipalities to have cut power or ability to use wireless service through your phones or mobile devices in 2011. And this was a system in San Francisco where it was deployed and it shut down a protest.
Right. It was during a protest. Right.
San Francisco.
So there. Okay. So what is their cutoff point? Do you use this cutoff switch to quell a protest?
Well, this, in my understanding, this is part of the something I was looking at today, the National Continuity Policy, and this goes back to the executive order Dave Hodges was referencing yesterday.
Exactly.
It all boils down to terminology and linguistics, and what the U.S. government deems a catastrophic emergency. And in this document, in the National Continuity Policy, it means any incident, regardless of location, that results in extraordinary levels of mass casualties, damage, or disruption severely affecting the U.S. population, infrastructure, environment, economy, or U.S. government functions. So when we see the words in here, critical emergencies, in quotations, I think it's talking about and dealing directly with what the executive order and the United States government has deemed to be essential services and functions and critical emergencies. And what they have done is designed this continuity of government plan to continue to work with the three branches of government in times of a terrorist attack or a national emergency. But they've given a broad definition of what is an emergency.
Okay.
And under their terminology, an emergency can be anything from a protest to a mass casualty event. It can be anything that disrupts the regular day-to-day operation of any town, village, city, or, it goes up.
Well, okay. And I think these are the little things, at least to me, or
they say the devil's in the details.
Exactly. We're looking at the Middle East erupt in chaos. We're looking at Kenya erupt in Somalia, and we're talking about this. And people have got to be saying, "Wait a minute, don't you have anything better to talk about?" Well, the way we look at it is, and how many times, Joe, have you and I? And I mean, you trained under the best, right, investigator, which is me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking, folks. I'm joking. But I mean, how many times have we found the answers to what we were looking for in a larger case, in something so obscure you wouldn't even think to look there, but frankly, we stumbled on it, or we just became we focused on something that someone ordinarily didn't or hadn't focused on. And so these are the little things when you look at this, especially in the context of what Dave Hodges said last night, that I think we can look at their strategy. See, this is part of the strategy, because remember what Dave said last night about we're not going to be on the air. Well, wouldn't it stand to reason that if there's going to be, I don't know, an extraction type situation or anything, they're going to want to cut off communications. They don't want you notifying your neighbor or your group captain or leader or whatever. So under SOP, Standard Operating Procedure 303, they can pull the plug on the mobile phone service during and
on
say
Wi-Fi.
Critical emergency. Yeah. Well, see, and I think we have to watch these little moves at the periphery of the smoking volcano, because I think this is where we're going to find the real answers. That's just me. Now, I've been doing a lot of introspective, not soul searching, but some pretty deep research. And as I mentioned, I was down this weekend in the worst way. I mean, I got the flu. Like Saturday morning, I was sitting at my desk at like 7:00. I felt relatively decent. At 7:05, man, I don't know. It was almost like somebody punched me in the stomach and hit me on the head with an anvil, from the cartoons. And I mean, it hit me that quick. But then, after about 24 hours, I regained my composure a little bit and was able to do some research. But the reason I mention that is because I had some time to do some research. And I think based on this, I think what we're talking about here are all these little trinkets. Don't pay attention to the real big shiny trinket, or pay attention, but don't put everything into that. Watch the little, more dull trinkets around the edges, I should say, because I think that's where the answers are going to be, and it's a good find here.
And
so, anyway.
I don't know if you saw this. This is an article from Sunday, April 5th. Time U.S. leadership woke up to a new economic era.
Yeah.
The past month may be remembered at the moment by the United States as it lost its role as the underwriter of the global economic system. True, there have been any number of periods of frustration for the U.S. before, and at times when American behavior was hardly multilateralist, such as in the 1971 Nixon shock ending the convertibility of the dollar into gold. But I can think of no evidence since Bretton Woods comparable to the culmination of China's efforts to establish a new institution and the failure of the U.S. to persuade dozens of its traditional allies, starting with Britain, to stay out of it. This article is from Larry Summers, who was the 71st Secretary of the Treasury for President Clinton and served as the Director for the National Economic Council under President Obama. He goes on to
You got to stop saying President Obama, man.
I'm just reading.
Yeah, I know. Just think you're a renegade in chief.
The failure of the strategy and tactics was a long time in coming, and it should lead to a comprehensive review of the U.S. approach to global economics. With China's economic size rivaling America's and emerging markets accounting for at least half of the world output, the global economic architecture needs substantial adjustment. Political pressures from all sides in the U.S. have rendered it increasingly dysfunctional. And it goes on from there to state, because of the resistance from the right, the U.S. stands alone in the world, failing to approve the International Monetary Fund governance reforms that Washington itself pushed for in 2009. By supplementing IMF resources, this change would have bolstered confidence in the global economy. More important, it would have come closer to giving countries such as China and India a share of IMF votes with their new economic heft. Meanwhile, pressures from the left have led to persuasive restrictions on infrastructure projects financed through existing developmental banks, which have consequently receded as funds, even as developing countries now see infrastructure finance as their principal external funding need, with U.S. commitments and U.S.-backed policies blocking the kinds of finance other countries want to provide or receive through existing institutions. The way was clear for China to establish the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And this is the new financial conglomerate that countries are moving away from the IMF, and China has started its own. We've talked about this in several articles, that China has developed this new, I don't know what you'd call it, a global monetary system or monetary group, kind of like the World Bank of the East, and they are pushing countries towards their new Eastern investment system.
Well, the whole thing, what we're seeing is this realignment, and this is something I think we have to once more pay attention to, is the economic aspect of things. We're seeing these alliances form. Think of what was that series, Survivor, where alliances. Yeah. Okay, we're seeing alliances form, financial alliances form right now. And the move is away from the dollar, but see, people think, and I really want to make sure people really understand, everyone really understands, based on our research, my research and Joe's, and talking with people like, just talking with the economists that know what's really going on. I really believe what we have is the Rockefeller types and the Rothschild types and the banking families in the city of London actually making it appear that making the dollar appear lucrative, making falsely inflating the stock exchange here in the U.S. But meanwhile, they're working against the dollar by creating these alliances. In fact, you've got the expansion of the BRICS nations. So, and let's throw Iran in here first or two. You've got some Iranian assets here. Once the sanctions are lifted, what's that going to do to the balance of the global economic system? And I think too few people are paying attention to the Iranian, what will happen with Iran once things are normalized with Iran. I think that the money plays a big part of that. And speaking of Iran, let me just toss this out here. The Zero Hedge had an article. It was today. It was actually submitted by David Stockman. If you've ever read the Contra Corner blog, basically this, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. The Iranian Framework Agreement, he writes, is an astonishingly good deal. Sorry about that. It has the potential to become a historic game changer. As Robert Perry astutely observed, it's about much more than achieving the threat that Iran will get the bomb. And this makes reference to the upside to the global economic system. He writes, the April 2nd Framework Agreement with Iran represents more than just a diplomatic deal to prevent nuclear proliferation in the Middle East. It marks a crossroad that offers a possible path for the American Republic to regain its footing and turn away from endless war. Now, you'd have to dig deep into the article to understand the economic implications of this. But essentially, what this guy is saying is, I would just urge you to read that article. It's by David Stockman, and it's via the Contra Corner blog. The Iranian nuclear framework finally exposes the war party's big lie. It's got a lot of good information in that, in terms of how Iran fits into all of this, and in fact, we might be addressing this a little bit more with our guest tomorrow night, as well as perhaps even on Thursday. I'm just going to leave that alone at this point. But understand the global economic system is changing with lightning speed.
Yeah, and our guest tomorrow night is Dr. Michael Lake.
Man.
He is an author who wrote a chapter of the book Blood on the Altar from Tom Horn, but has his new book out, The Shinar Directive, which I've glanced at, and you've been able to read.
Yes, I've held it hostage.
Yeah, and we see that this is a fascinating book, and he'll be our guest tomorrow night, and looking forward to that, to hearing him. This out of California, we know that the drought in California has been going on for a long time, but now Governor Jerry Brown orders fines for long showers and any use of water deemed, more than what they allot for each house. And how are they going to enforce this? Well, there's a separate article out of CBS Los Angeles. Authorities have a new tool to fight against water wasters. You know what that tool is? Smart meters.
When you said that, I'm not even going to make a joke of that, but isn't that convenient? Smart meters now. Okay.
Long Beach Water Department says sprinklers at McDonald's restaurant on Bellflower Boulevard went on for 45 minutes at a time, twice a night, for an unidentified number of nights. Complaints continued to mount as water pooled and was wasted. The department could do nothing or little about the wasting. That was before the smart meter. Since its installation in February, Long Beach Water Department General Manager Kevin Wadier says that saw an immediate spike by tens of thousands of gallons each time McDonald's overwatered their property. It collects data every 5 minutes. Then, after midnight, the cell phones that built in here comes on, that makes one call and calls into the database that we and the customer through a password security system, have online access to their consumption. Wadier said, the accuracy is just incredible because we get the data the next day. Using this data, we know the precise moment sent to his employees to videotape the infractions to use as evidence. We are using it specifically for an enforcement tool to go after those consumers who we've gotten lots of complaints about. This is what they say in the article. Wadier says he believes smart meters will be used in both business and homes to track water waste across Southern California. And those smart meters will be giving information for Governor Jerry Brown's new executive order calling for a $500 a day fine for people who water their lawns or take long showers. And former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carla Florina calls the 4-year-long drought plaguing California residents a man-made disaster, the work of liberal environmentalists who are willing to sacrifice other people's lives and livelihoods at the altar of their ideology. Now, this drought has been going on for a while, and Stan Dale can talk about this when he comes on because this is something that we've been talking about with Stan. But with this new executive order Governor Jerry Brown issued, with implementing $500 a day fines for people they deem who use too much water, they have, at the same time, given exemptions to big oil and agriculture companies, that they have no restrictions put on them when it comes to water.
Well, you've heard Steve Quayle talk about water wars, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that here we have a situation, and people in California can certainly, you certainly know what's going on there. They're weaponizing water, they're weaponizing food, and this is absolutely, I mean, look in the history. Look how in with Russia, how food was rationed or cut off. The food supply was cut off, and even to a lesser extent water. But nonetheless, the control is through food and water. And believe me, if you're hungry or thirsty, you're going to be much more compliant than if not, or if you don't have a resource for yourself, which does address the reclamation type activities of collecting rainwater and other things. You can't do that in certain places, and that's against the law, state, federal, local, municipal laws in some areas. So there's the end game, but I think that's very important to keep your eye out for. And boy, all of this might seem like trivial and boring, perhaps even boring to some extent, like I said, but I put all the pieces together.
Yeah, Governor Brown said in an interview on Sunday that he blames this drought on climate change and goes on to say climate change is not a hoax, it is very serious. But what they are going to do is they are going to, they have used the force of law, as it states in this article. Water will be monitored, and the order enforced by state water districts will be implemented. And it goes on to say the idea of you and your little green grass getting lots of water every day, that's just going to be a thing of the past. And what they're going to do is start dishing out fines via executive order for people who they deem have used too much water and are not complying with the water restrictions that they have placed.
Mm. Did you see this, Joe? Can I jump into this? Julian Assange. Google is not what it appears to be.
Did not see that.
Okay. Very interesting. And I think this provides us with confirmation, not that we needed it. And I'd like to remind everyone, of course, Google is not a verb. I know we've been pretty lax on enforcing that rule here at the Hagmann and Hagmann broadcast, but Google is not a verb. You don't Google anything unless you're talking about doing something, illicit with your wife or whatever, husband, Anyway, here's the deal. Julian Assange, this dates back to October 23rd, 2014. But it found some new life here when it was being passed around some intelligence newsletters. And I found it very interesting because in retrospect, if you look at back in October of 2014, which was only, 6 months ago, 8 months, let's see, August, 6 months ago, roughly. You can see things already taking place and already coming out about Google, but just some things that stuck out when I saw this on one of our intelligence newsletters that we get. Google is getting White House and State Department support and basically air cover. In reality, they're doing things that the CIA cannot do. There's this cross, very incestuous relationship between Google, the owner, the think tank created by Google or part of Google, and the Central Intelligence Agency. And if you look over the last half century, you're going to see this this huge proliferation of NGOs, political as well as military, think tanks, and they're proxies for the world government. And this is what this article gets into, what this Julian Assange states, that Google is not what it appears to be. It's much more. And by using Google, you are actually kind of unwittingly becoming part of the matrix. The reason I bring this up now, aside from or in addition to the fact that this is included in certain new intelligence reports, and the reason for that, of course, is because of the cyber attacks and also the exposure of personal information out there, facial recognition of people's faces on, for example, Facebook. It would appear this, and this is based on my research, and this is what I got out of everything. It would appear that Google is perhaps the computer Tavistock Institute of the United States. Now, those of you who know what the Tavistock Institute is, understand its function, can understand what I'm referring to. It's also a data collection service for the Central Intelligence Agency. And it's part and parcel to the reason that we see facial recognition software with respect to the Facebook. When you post a picture on Facebook, Joe, I don't know. I don't go on Facebook hardly at all, but although I do have a Facebook account, and I know that we do as well, but for the program. But have you seen this recently, where just about any photograph that you put up, there's a kind of a dotted box that appears? And I know this has been going on for a while.
On Facebook in a while.
Well, and folks, I do know that this has been going on for a while, but this box kind of shows up, this overlay of the we'll say of a face, or something that could be construed as a face. And down below, it'll say, "Who's this?" with a question mark.
That's been there.
It's been there for a while.
I haven't seen it in a while because it's been so long since and the friend identifier type feature. Yeah.
Well, this is kind of one of the bigger cogs in the wheel that turns the machinery behind that. On behalf, let me finish that. On behalf of the intelligence agencies. And this is one of the things that Assange is saying. And now the people on the inside of the intelligence agencies, the general workers, those people who perhaps their wives or daughters have Facebook accounts, are saying, wait a minute, or are using Google as their primary search engine. They're saying, whoa, wait a minute, this is a data mining operation from start to finish. And I think moreover, the more important thing about this is we're getting more and more confirmation about exactly what and how deep the data mining process, how far down the road this has gone. And Dave Hodges was smack dab right on yesterday when he talked about the data mining and about the computer aspects of things. Just want to let that. It kind of fit with yesterday. perhaps I went out a little bit on a tangent to explain it by bringing in the antiquated article or relatively older article, but nonetheless, I think it's important for people to really understand exactly what's going on with that.
Back to the Tech Giants article. Just want to read a few excerpts here from this article. This goes on to say that there was a meeting that these people had, and they were working towards what they call ideas that break out ideas that defy conventional wisdom. And they talked about it's those who have an optimism about what can be done that will shape the future, according to this billionaire Thiel, who is funding this research. But they say their objective is to use tools of technology, the chips, software programs, algorithms, and big data used in creating information revolution to understanding and upgrade what they consider to be the most complicated piece of machinery, the human body. The entrepreneurs are driven by a centitude that is rebuilding, regenerating, and reprogramming patients' organs, limbs, cells, and DNA will be enabled people to live longer and better. The work they are funding includes hunting for the secrets of living organisms with insanely long lives, engineering microscopic nanobots that can fix your body from the inside out, or figuring out how to reprogram the DNA you were born with, and exploring ways to digitize your brain based on theory that your mind could live long after your body expires. I believe that evolution is a true account of nature, Thiel put it, but I think we should try to escape it or transcend it in our society.
See, this is the ultimate hard drive, isn't it? What they're trying to build, or perhaps I believe have already built, is a hard drive, if you will, or a cloud even, that will accept your consciousness, your memories, all of it. And I think if you look back at the time of Nimrod, when the Pharaoh god kings were living, they possessed this knowledge far surpassing even perhaps what we have today.
Yeah, and let's, if we can, I know we don't have too much time to get in here before the break, but I got to call Brother Marcus and thank him for sending me some publication that talks about this, and it goes back and it explains it in biblical terms, and it talks about, first man walked with God, and they knew God, and then at some point man sinned, and because they became vain in their own imaginations and professed themselves to be wise, they became foolish and fools in their own minds and darkened in their hearts due to their vain imaginations. But it goes on to say that the knowledge first was from God, and even from the they walked with God, and at the beginning people
this is important. Go ahead.
Leaders, they called this the first societies. The people who had knowledge of God, they had records of this from secular to biblical accounts, that first man did know God and walked with him, and then it spells out how, but then they chose not to glorify him, not to honor him, and their thoughts and actions gave place, even though they knew God, they did not want to retain him in their knowledge. And through this, it goes on to say that there came a time, however, when even this lingering knowledge of God as king and the only rightful ruler was cut off from man himself, and man assumed the full title and prerogatives of kings. The first man to do this was Nimrod. This was the first man in the world who had the boldness to take himself the title and prerogative of king, in the face of the yet lingering idea of God as king.
See,
and this goes on to say this is the first state, first nation, first government outside of God. And this gets into earthly, heavenly authority versus worldly authority.
And I'm glad you brought that. I'm glad you expanded on this, because, folks, of all the things that we've talked about, and you've heard Steve Quayle 20 years ago talking about this, if you've listened to him that long. In fact, many of our guests, Paul McGuire talking about this. This is what the ultimate objective is to live forever. Now, I know the article in the Washington Post says, well, maybe 150 years, but what these pharaoh god kings, as these billionaires, these global elite see themselves to be, what they're trying to do is achieve immortality without salvation. And immortality by or through their god, Lucifer. We have to get into this much deeper because this is so important to understand. And Paul McGuire talks about it in Mass Awakening as well.
With that, we're going to go to our top of the hour break. We're going to come back on the other side with Stan Deyo. Go to standeyo.com, full of ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hager Report on this Tuesday, April 7th, 2015. As always on Tuesday, we are joined by our guest, the real Indiana Jones, Mr. Stan Deyo. Stan, it's great to have you back on the show. How you doing?
Well, I'm another week older. How about you?
The same here. And I didn't mention this in the first hour, but I'd like to wish my dad a happy anniversary today.
Well, thank you.
Is their anniversary in the how many years? 24? 23? 24?
It's up there. It's up there.
Well, happy up there.
Well, thanks, Dan. Yeah, another week older. It just seems like these weeks just fly by, and well, so much to talk to you about, including that odd circle of, we were trying to describe it. It looked like smoke or whatever. I'm not sure if you saw that or not, or if we're even describing that correctly. But so many things going on out there. My goodness. I'm not even sure where to start. Where do you want to start this week, Stan, my friend?
Well, I suppose maybe a minor thing would be the last 7 days of earthquakes over 4.5 around the world. As usual, on the show images page for the show tonight on our website, at latest count here, our latest analysis, if you look at that picture, you will see that the majority of the earthquakes over Richter 4.5 in the last week have been on the western side of the Arc of Fire, the Pacific Ring of Fire it used to be called, and most of that is in New Guinea, Fiji, in that tectonic plate border that runs kind of over the top of Australia and almost down to the top of New Zealand. There's more activity there than anywhere else on the planet. I don't know if we're going to see more activity on the west coast of South America. Certainly it's had a few at the same time, but majority of action is at the moment over on the New Guinea, Indonesia, Fiji, that side of the Ring of Fire. Don't know if this will be a trend, but it does seem lopsided at the moment, so let's keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it looks at least 3-1. By at least 3-1 on the Pacific Rim, as you were saying.
Yeah. I'm sure you watch this like we do every day, and we get flurries of quake activity. Usually, these can be related to things like phases of the moon and whether we've had a solar flare. Now, this particular week, we've had a busy week. If you go down to the third row of our show images page there, on the right-hand side, you'll see solar flares April 4th through 5th this year. And it's an animation that they supplied to us from Soho. If you click on that, you'll see that this is the 7th. So this was 2 days ago for 2 days of data recording, which I did this instead of just showing what's happening right now, because this is the time that the effect of these flares and coronal mass ejections would be hitting the Earth and perhaps causing blackouts and things like that. And if you look at that, from April the 4th through to the 5th, the 48-hour period, was very busy. I mean, just click on that and look at that movie, watching those very bright, very strong coronal mass ejections and flares coming off of the sun. Impressive. And depending on the speeds, because there were several of them blowing off at the same time, depending on the speeds of these, and the vector of them, we'll get some of that here on the Earth within 2 days, which is now. And this also tends to make earthquakes happen if they're ready to release. It becomes a trigger effect. That combined with the phase of the moon, because that causes tides in the land as well as the sea. So keep your eyes open next few days. I think that we're going to see some more earthquakes of significance. I also have on that show images page another just interesting thing. It's not earth-shaking, but it's on the second row and on the first image. And it's a picture that an astronomer took. Say amateur, I guess he's not paid for it, but he's a very good astronomer. And you'll see that the eclipse of the sun, this third blood moon that they've talked about, also had a kind of bluish, maybe teal kind of color on the top right-hand side of the moon, as the blood red portion was on the left side, as you can see in the image. But out into space, into the lens of his telescope, it created a kind of rainbow effect over that teal-colored portion of the sun. Now, this is caused by some of the sunlight coming from behind us went through the ozone layer of our planet, and that gave it that kind of tealish-colored hue. But it's a very good photograph in that it created kind of what I nicknamed a moon rainbow. There's no rain there, but it's just a beautiful color spectrum that spread off the surface there in his telescope. So no panic, just an interesting thing to see. Now, as you know, this happened on the 4th of April this year, and that was the third in a series of 4 blood moons in this current Shemitah. I've put up a link or images that's been supplied online showing where people could see this last eclipse over the weekend. And you'll see by the descriptors, if you click on the image and enlarge it, that there were only a certain number of people on the planet or places where you could see 100% of the eclipse as it occurred. And I'll leave you to sort out, where the little lines are and stuff on that graph, but it does tell you that. And it also gave us the information on later this year on the 4th blood moon, which will occur on the 28th of September, where the best visibility will be. Now, interestingly, the last one, the third one this weekend, was not really visible in Israel. But this next one coming is definitely going to be visible in Israel and the United States at the same time. So click on that and have a look at that when you get time. Okay, that's the major part of that. While I was checking on this, I accidentally stumbled on a website called flightaware.com. And I was looking for how to track a couple planes over the top of our house here that were making chemtrails rather than contrails. And I wanted to see if I could find out what kind of aircraft they were and who they belonged to. And so I got to this site, which is FLIGHT aware, AWARE.com. And if you get there's a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how to plot everything, but after playing with it a bit, like top left-hand corner says live flight tracking, and it'll bring up a map of whatever airport you select out of all of them that they show you, and you'll see little planes, images of planes, little icons flying across your screen at the speed they're actually flying. It's live tracking aircraft wherever you tell it to. Right. And the beauty of this is you can click on these little aircraft, and it will bring up the aircraft type, the flight number, and photographs of what that aircraft looks like. And if it weren't for cloud cover today, I could go out. There was one that passed over the house here about an hour ago, and I clicked on it, and it showed its altitude, its speed right at that instant, and where it was headed, where it had come from, and so I could go out and look at it. And of course, cloud cover prevented that. But this is a handy tool, and the reason I put it up is for people to be able to make a log of what kind of aircraft were generating these chemtrails and what altitude they were at when they were doing it. That allows us to see if altitude has anything to do with a contrail becoming a chemtrail, as some are trying to tell us, or whether that's just bull dust, and it didn't matter what altitude, the planes that were producing chemtrails, we could track it and see what altitude, what velocity they were doing. Anyway, it tracks everything moving. And if you look at the map of the United States, it's very, very cluttered. You have to zoom in on the airport you want. But
yeah, I've used that. You know what, Stan? I've used that website, but not for the purpose that you stated. Now, have you drawn any additional conclusions from that with respect to chemtrails?
Well, actually, I just found out about the website today, and we're cloudy overcast, so I can't I can't correlate the two. But certainly yourself and listeners to the show can do this over a period of time and just get an idea of what kind of aircraft, what altitude, what speed generate these chemtrails rather than contrails. I see probably 95% of what I see in the skies over here in Colorado are chemtrails. And so it's the rare time you see a contrail, and those I want to track and see what weather conditions, what altitude, what type of aircraft produce those, the ones that are the old-timey ones, you know.
Gotcha. Very interesting.
Hey, oh, yeah, I delve off into these little rabbit holes occasionally looking for something, and so I want to share that with your listeners, and obviously you've already been there, so you know what it can do. It's a very powerful website. I mean, you can even look at who the cabin attendants are on a particular flight real time, you know.
Yeah.
It's just amazing detail. I don't know why they're allowing this out to the public, but hey, I'm glad to use it.
My wife actually used that. We were tracking when we were in Florida at the Prophecy and the News Conference. We were tracking someone's flight coming into the conference at someone else's request, and she was using it to do that. And it was just an amazing tool. I mean, but you're right. Of all the things that are out there, it would seem to me that so a person with nefarious intentions could certainly use this as a tool for whatever their intent might be.
You know, another reason I looked into it was because I got an email from a guy that I don't know, but telling about this California National Guard training this weekend for a mock dirty bomb drill over Oakland, California, and apparently, according to this email I got, the guy had tracked a small single-engine aircraft circling around Oakland and around and around and around, probably 10 times, a nice circle around it. And his claim was that this aircraft was a small sniffer aircraft to sniff out radioactive particles in the air over the area. Now, 3 months ago, it is true, in Vietnam, they did lose a significant quantity of cobalt, I think it was 60, radioactive material anyway, which could be used in a dirty bomb, and they haven't found it in the last 3 months. So this guy was putting 2 and 2 together and, getting 5, I think. But anyway, saying that, look, with this new sniffer aircraft going around a week or two before the actual mock dirty bomb drill occurs in that very area, were they already aware of something loose in the area, and they were going to have the mock, dirty bomb drill, and so that everybody didn't panic, and they were able to have them on the ground there if they needed them, and if it really was a dirty bomb going off. As I say, I have not been able to track down this alleged sniffer aircraft track. The guy used that same website we're talking about to plot it. But I can't find any proof that particular single-engine aircraft could be used as a sniffer aircraft and was being used as same. Could be, but it's just kind of one of those things you put in the back burner and think, well, okay, let's keep an eye on California and Oakland, for the next week and see what happens.
So, nothing definite possible, but nothing definite. Certainly nothing confirmatory. But you're urging, nonetheless, surveillance or watching that area, nonetheless. Okay, I get that, and I like that balanced and reasoned approach as opposed to saying, "Oh, definitely," or whatever. So this is good. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Yeah, a lot of reports. You had mentioned this coming out of the gate. Quite a few emails I've been getting about the earthquakes and just about the unsettled earth, and more so than usual. And I just want to kind of put the exclamation point on that report. People saying, "My goodness, they felt an earthquake in places." Several people in places that they don't ordinarily have earthquakes. And one emailer in particular believes it to be related to fracking, and wanted me to ask you, since I brought this up again, if fracking could be responsible, or if there. I'm sorry, to be exact. The exact question is: could fracking, or is there a way to tell if the earthquake is caused by fracking in terms of the depth of the earthquake or other signature that would be shown on a seismograph?
Well, I think it probably would be possible to correlate that sort of data. I don't know that I'm able to do that just at a cursory glance in the specs coming out, or for that matter, any other of us that are not in it professionally, with bigger computers and software at our fingertips. The majority of big earthquakes are not in areas where people are fracking. Now, obviously, in Oklahoma, around Oklahoma City and north of there's a lot of fracking going on. In northern Colorado, there's a lot of fracking going on. But Oklahoma, I could quite happily suggest, from the data I've seen, that it's not so much the fracking itself, but the disposal of the salt water that's a byproduct of the fracking. That salt water has to be pumped back down into fracture zones or storage areas in the dirt after they're through with it. Now that lubricates the area where it goes in, and I don't know that they have done enough research with depth penetrating seismology to see where connecting caverns or flow paths are between these dump zones and nearby fault lines. Now, we're seeing increasing strength of earthquakes around Oklahoma City, up in the 4.5 region, and they've been gradually over the months increasing up to this kind of strength, with still a lot of earthquakes happening. This, to me, indicates, and to some of the USGS people analyzing it, that long term we're looking at a build-up to maybe a Richter 7.5 earthquake in the Oklahoma City region. When, is kind of question mark again, but it's a pattern of increasing earthquake strength rather than just a bunch of them at low values around 2.5 to 3. That you could just say, well, that's byproduct of pumping the salt water or, connected to the fracking, but that'll pass when they stop fracking. But the increase in the magnitude of these and the number of those with increased magnitudes does wave a red flag that there may be something happening in Oklahoma City earthquake-wise in the next year or so. The other thing is, these fracking things all do seem to have money at the bottom line. They're out there getting natural gas and petroleum products that they need, but they're doing it along the top end of a very kind of quiet fault line until recently, of course, that connects Oklahoma City off to the east to the New Madrid fault line through Arkansas. I know that that's where they have to go to get the petroleum products they're after, because that's on a shield border underneath the ground there, and that's where you'll find these fracture zones that have the gas domes and things that you need, that you get with the fracking. So that tells them where they have to go to do it, but the wisdom of it kind of escapes me. You're weighing dollars versus wiping out, the cities that could be affected by it, the earthquake. I was over there actually when I was filming a couple of weeks back with the Prophecy Watchers with Gary Stearman and Bob Ulrich, and I was sitting in a living room there. We were going over the show we were going to do the next day, and it felt like the house kind of dropped a foot, bang, like that, straight down. And that was a Richter 4, probably, 10 miles away. of course, over around Oklahoma City. So it stopped the conversation for a while. We all looked at each other and waited for the roof to fall or what was going to happen, but nothing did. It's exciting, but it's kind of a warning at the same time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Switching gears here, this is an article I saw yesterday, and this is at least the third one I've seen like this with similar headlines. Fukushima radiation has reached North American shores. This particular article is from statesmanjournal.com, but it says seaborne radiation from Japan's Fukushima nuclear disaster has reached North America. Now they make the distinction that this is seaborne radiation,
and it's cesium. I saw an article, the same thing, or a similar one.
Cesium-134
yeah.
and cesium-137 were detected in small amounts off Vancouver Island in British Columbia, and they go on to say that this. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Now,
yeah, go on.
We have the air pollution and the air contaminants that have been coming over to America. Now, this is the seaborne radiation. What can we expect this seaborne radiation? Is this worse? We know all that contamination from Fukushima was being pumped back out into the ocean as the groundwater was coming in, being infected with the radioactive cesium and other particles and being pumped back out into the ocean at astronomical levels. But is the danger from the seaborne radiation worse, better? How is it different from that of the airborne radiation, and what can people on the West Coast or across America expect?
Well, the better or worse is kind of relative to everything you want to consider about it. The airborne stuff does come and go, and it will drop into specific areas depending upon the prevailing weather patterns and rain and snow, whatever might settle it, and then it passes. The waterborne stuff goes into the marine life that you might find in Alaskan crab, you might find it in the fish off the shore of California or Oregon, and that's been happening since the Fukushima events happened. The marine life does migrate, does move around the ocean. So when they get infected and they live, they don't die with this all the time. They come over to our shores. Now, is this affecting? Is it the waterborne stuff and the fish having it, and then the birds that eat the fish are getting it and dying? Is it airborne radiation pockets that are causing these flocks of birds to just drop out of the sky dead? I mean, there's been thousands of them along the West Coast in the last few weeks. What is doing that? Is it the radiation or not? The reports are not really conclusive, and certainly if the government does know that this is the boogeyman, the radiation from Fukushima, they're not going to play on this heavily because it's going to affect real estate values and food prices and migration patterns and all kinds of stuff. California's got enough problems, let's face it, with that drought. But waterborne stuff. You've got vectors in there, which are living fish, marine life, that are carrying it places, plus the water itself. But according to the official position on this, as you saw in the article, you could go out there and you could swim, I think they said 6 hours every day for a year, and the dosage of radiation you get from the water off the coast there now would be less than you'd get in an x-ray of your teeth at the dentist.
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
But that's the official position. Beyond that, I don't know.
All right. Wow.
Yeah, that's.
But I mean, putting in that perspective. Okay.
And then,
it's only one of a zillion things that are threatening us at the moment. Put it on the list.
Well, yeah. Before you jump in here, I have about half a dozen questions that were submitted through our Contact Us page off of Hagmann@Hagmann.com, and people wanting us to ask you your this week's assessment of what's taking place in the Middle East, and specifically Iran. I wanted to get that question in there before we veered off on something else, Dan, because there are a lot of people that are curious as to what your feelings and perceptions are with what's taking place over in the Middle East. And since you had talked about ISIS and Qasem Soleimani. And people are looking very carefully, and they're watching the changes. So at least you've got quite a few people, fixing their gaze at this individual and what's taking place. So they want to know your update this week versus last week, this week versus the last couple of weeks. So I'll let you have a go at that.
Okay. Yeah, there are a few things to talk about there. When I first found out or discovered, I think, from Scripture that the Revelation in the 13th chapter is telling us at the end of it about a way to tell the name of the Antichrist being the name Solomon and associated with 666, and primarily this one guy, only one guy, one man of wisdom that is associated with that number, and that was King Solomon in the Old Testament. Now, from that, I started out saying, okay, let's see if there are any players in the Middle East in the news that are gaining prominence that could be named Solomon. And when I first discovered this back in June of last year, the only guy on the scene was kind of a minor player, Abu Suleiman, and he was a cleric turned anti-ISIS terrorist over in Syria fighting ISIS, believe it or not. But he, was gaining support, and he moved his way up to number 2. I said, well, all right, is this the guy who is, Abu Suleiman? But time passed, and then I got an email from one of your listeners, and they said, look at this guy named Soleimani, Qasem Soleimani from Iran, the general in charge of their Quds forces. So, okay, we talked about that in your show, and I put that up on the website. And he's still going strong. He's still advising the Iraqi troops how to get rid of ISIS. He's kicked ISIS out of Tikrit in Iraq at the moment, and so he's a hero in Iraq as well as Iran. Now he's got a name. Soleimani is a derivative of the local language of Solomon. But there's another player that came up a few weeks back in Saudi Arabia. The king dies and is replaced with a guy named King Salman, Salman, which, okay, that's a derivative of Solomon too. And I thought, well, he's an old guy. I don't see him fitting the profile. He's not really a warlord or anything, and didn't think much about it until I got another email last week after the show, and this person said, look, have a look at his son, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, which means, Muhammad, son of Solomon. He's just been appointed by the king as the new defense minister for Saudi Arabia. And I put pictures of him up on the website today because he's an attractive fellow. He's only about 30 years old, but he's got the reins of the Saudi, defense, and he's advising troops down in Yemen, how to fight ISIS there. And, he's very likable, he's a good-looking guy. And he just kind of has the earmarks of the Solomon we may be looking at. He's got over $13 trillion of family money behind him. I mean, there's about 2,000 key players in the Saud family, and that's the kind of wealth they control directly, which means that they are a very, very powerful group of people. On that note, while I was getting pictures of the prince, I found a picture of Obama bowing his head and shaking the hand of the prince's father, King Solomon. There's a photograph of it there. I just thought, man, this is bad. This is really, it's embarrassing and it's bad. It's just showing that Obama is, kissing up to the Saud family. I dug a little bit deeper into this young prince, and okay, he was appointed the defense minister by his father as part of 6 royal decrees issued by King Solomon to appoint staff members, as he took over. Then I thought, well, are there any other 6s connected with either his father or the prince? Well, they're part of the 6 nations in the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Oman. And then I thought, well, okay, what about the prince himself? He's the 6th son of King Solomon. So he's got sixes in his nameplate there all over the place. And I stumbled on another article in the Saudi Arabian Times. It's all in Arabic, but we translate it. There was a picture of the new smart police cars that they put into service in Saudi Arabia. And if you look at the picture, it looks like a cop car, and it's got some kind of a sheriff's shield on the door, the driver's door, and a number in the rear kind of criminal door, the back seat, a number on the door.
It's not a squad car number, or this is not pertaining to any individual car, the number.
This wouldn't be car 54. Where are you? Okay. I mean, this is not a designation.
I don't know, but I looked at that, and I thought, I stood back, and I looked at that picture, and I thought, gee, this is interesting. Looking for 666s in Saudi Arabia, if you flip that picture upside down, and if you click on it, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's that 999, which is an Arabic symbol, I don't know what it is really, is 666 upside down, and the shield for the police car looks like an eye looking at you. And I thought, this is just very interesting. So we'll keep an eye on it. Look, as time passes, I will put up every Solomon-type candidate that I feel has a possibility of being the man. Now, there's a guy, the head of Turkey, Tayyip Erdogan. He's the president of Turkey, and he's got lots of money he's using, and people aren't happy about it there, but he's built this huge palace for himself. He's very kind of full of himself, he's very egotistical, and they're saying that he's very clever, very wise, and, Turkey has a great deal to do with remembering King Solomon, and they use Solomon over there as a great family name to have, but Erdogan doesn't have that name. He's just acting like a wise King Solomon, and he's even got in this new palace, he's got a place for his harem. It's not quite like what you see in the movies, but it's a very nice formal big area where the ladies he wants to entertain him can come and join him in the palace. It's a huge palace. I forget how many 1,000 rooms it's got, but it's huge. So he's another candidate that I'm putting on there because Turkey and Iran are working together to get rid of ISIS, but also to form this new confederation of Arab states, which will probably only be 5 major nations as opposed to the 6 nations I was mentioning in the Gulf Cooperation Council. But there's going to be a consortium formed out of Arab nations over the Arab Muslim nations, and I think Turkey and Iran will be 2 of the 5. And then, of course, when they finish getting the 5 strong countries together in this consortium, they will then, with the Pope, help of the Pope, form a larger consortium with 5 European nation states in it, I think, to form the 10 nation states talked about in the Revelation. The east to west legs of the old Roman Empire.
Did you see what the Pope, he mentioned this Iranian deal in his Easter message. Did you see that, Stan, what the Pope said?
I didn't watch the message. What in particular are you referring to?
I'll send you I'll put the article in Skype here, but it is Pope praises Iran deal, and this is talking about the obviously the deal that the United States has implemented. They say that happened last week in Switzerland with the Iran and the United States. It says, in hope we can entrust to the merciful Lord the framework recently agreed to in Louisiana, and this may be a definite step towards a more secure and fraternal world, the Pope said in the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. And he goes on to say, we ask for peace above all for Syria and Iraq, and in the roar of arms that may cease, and that peaceful relations may be restored among the various groups which make up those beloved countries.
You know what, Stan? It just when I read this, and it just seems as if we've got the Vatican really pushing well beyond anything that would be within the venue of the Vatican. The Vatican actually reaching out via this Pope to push for almost brokering himself an arms deal, if you will. It just seemed like a rather odd endorsement of something so nebulous and so volatile anyway. So it's I don't know. It caused me to question what the real deal is.
Well, he does influence a lot of people, and this Pope is certainly an activist. He's not sitting on his laurels. He's getting out there and getting busy with making reformations in a lot of the established Catholic doctrine. Whether Obama gets the deal pushed through or not, for the Pope to come out and endorse it like that is mighty. If you ask the Jewish people in Israel what they think about the Christians, they will automatically think about the Catholics, the Catholic Church. And the reason they don't like Christians in general is that they relate us to, evangelicals, to the Catholic Church, and to a lot of the mainline kind of, sponsored churches. But mainly the Catholic Church, which has been responsible for killing a lot of Jewish people in history. Even in Germany, when the guards, on their belt buckle there, when they were guarding the death camps where the Jews were being slaughtered, they had on their little belt buckles, "In God We Trust," in German, of course. But this is why they worry, Israel worries about the Catholic Church and its movements. Now, having said that, in the last 6 months, like 3 months, I guess now, we've seen former Prime Minister of Israel, Shimon Peres, meeting with the Pope and trying to establish a world religion, which the Catholic Church has been actively trying to do since 1976. This Pope may be the one that actually formulates. I mean, he's been going out and getting a lot of the Protestant churches and to come back together with the Catholic Church. And this is frightening. We're seeing this happen all over the place. Now, the next thing he'll do, he's already been talking, or the Church has since the Vatican since 1976, to get Islam to join together in a joint faith that they can both adopt. So keep an eye on the Pope too. He's he's betraying the Christian faith, I think. But probably thinks he's doing the right thing. But the road is paved with good intentions, isn't it?
Well, if they are indeed good intentions from the outset. Interesting observations, though. Yeah, I'm just the more we do research, the more I do research, Stan, of late, and using and folks, one of the greatest assets. I'm going to flat out tell you, one of the greatest assets that we have here at our studios is your standeo.com, your website, for articles, links to articles that are of extreme relevance to what's taking place, current events and geopolitical events, in addition to the earth changes and various other things. So, folks, bookmark standeo.com. That's standeo.com. And by the way, Stan will be on TV on April 28th. That's when you're scheduled to go on, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I did 2 shows with the guys with ProphecyWatchers.com, and the first is scheduled to go on the DirecTV 376. In fact, Holly's got a link up there to the number of stations and where they are on the website for Prophecy Watchers. They have a date up there, which is like March 3rd or something. It's not been updated recently, but they emailed me and told me that my interview would be, I think it's about a 30-minute interview with Gary Sherman, will be on that channel and the other channels they will list there on the 28th of April. There will be a second one, May, June, somewhere in there, which will be on the topics that we're talking about here about Solomon, the name of the Antichrist. The first one will be on the Garden of Eden lecture and some discussions on time and the dilation of time and parallel universes and things that hopefully won't cross your eyes. Gary and I had a great time, and I just kind of answered these questions, and he took me places where people probably wouldn't ordinarily go in the conversation, but it's interesting.
That's
There's a lot
fantastic.
more coming out of those boys over there.
Okay, well, that's great. We'll make sure that we publicize the show and well, subscribe, because we can get this through our provider. So I mean, most people can get that network. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, and even if you don't do that, as I understand it, they're already putting interviews they've had with L.A. Marzulli and some others on YouTube. They have a YouTube channel, and just look up. I think it's how do you do it? Users stroke Prophecy Watchers or something like that.
Okay.
And anyway, on YouTube, and you can see the videos they put up there already, and they're nice, high resolution, good quality interviews. And okay, you may have to wait a week after it's actually broadcast to see it, but it will be there. In fact, on their prophecywatchers.com main homepage at the moment, if you, I think I'll just check while I'm telling you that, but I think you just scroll down a few lines and it shows the promo that I did with Gary Stearman about the shows while I was still there at the studio. But anyway, it's they're forming. They've got a new studio they've been setting up in Oklahoma City, and after he and Bob left the prophecythenews.com group and formed their own group, both of them have been very busy. Gary goes several days out of the month to another Christian group to film at their studio, and so you'll see him all over the place. I don't know how he does it. It's just, at his age, he's just on the go all the time. But I'm glad he's doing it, because a lot of good stuff is getting out there.
That's fantastic. Well, it's going to be an extra added bonus to see you, your face, see you visually on the show on April 28th, as well as on the YouTube channel. This is fantastic.
You get to see me wave my hands trying to explain complicated things.
Stan, moving to another subject here. We had the last couple shows we talked about this Operation Military Martial Law Drill Jade Helm 15. What's your take on this? It's running from July through September of this year. It's going to encompass 7 states, and this drill is labeling parts of Texas and California as hostile territories, and there's going to be military personnel. There's a whole bunch of information out there about what this is actually going to be doing, but there's a few, and I'm not sure if you have the 12-page PDF, but it's Jade Helm in their logo, Master of the Human Domain, and it talks about this drill, marching through these 7 parts of the Southwest from California all the way through Texas, and how they're basically going to be thousands of military personnel from the airborne to Navy SEALs to Marine SEAL, U.S. Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Command Operations, Marine Special Command Operations,
in and out of uniform as well. In case you didn't
out of
know
uniform.
that. Yeah.
And they're going to be all throughout these communities, and they say training, for unconventional warfare throughout these areas. And there's a lot of concern about what this might be for, aside from the stated purpose of a drill. Have you heard anything about this?
Well, I've heard about the operation, and a lot of pros and cons about it. Mostly cons. I do find it interesting that we're seeing a lot of threat curves or event curves coming to the last quarter of this year, where September, October, November, in that area, we're seeing things like threat of an economic collapse worldwide, and the Middle East exploding either before or around that time with Israel attacking Iran's nuclear facilities or whatever. Now, at the same time, we're seeing this Jade Helm being put in place in July, getting them on the ground in these places and known to the locals, and they will be in place should they be needed. Now, these aren't just lightweight troops. These are special ops soldiers. And 12 good special ops soldiers can take over a city and get to its communications and power and whatever, and they can virtually control that city between 12 guys very rapidly, knowing where to go and what to disable and what to enable. The fact that they're putting them on the ground in July means that they're going to put them in position early, get them accustomed to the locals, the terrain, the lay of the land, and as you can see on that article you're mentioning, Joe, there's a map showing the states and which ones that they would treat as hostile and permissive, and whether they would be friendly or not. Now, Arizona, I think, is the only one that's kind of basically friendly. Then after that, Nevada, California, and Colorado. But Texas and Utah are seen as real threats. And Texans, okay, normally we don't put up with a lot. And Utah, well, that would be probably the Latter-day Saints, influence there. And they're not going to put up with a lot of guff either. That's, probably why they divided it up like that. New Mexico has got a lot of illegals and, kind of Democrat-type people, maybe a bit hostile, but more friendly, in my opinion, to the New World Order. California, okay, a lot of immigration, illegal and otherwise there, a lot of drought problems. And Nevada, I would have thought might have been more of a red state, like one that they would treat as a bit hostile, but I think they've listed it as a permissive, friendly type state. Anyway, all these places here are in the Southwest, obviously, and that's where the mainstay, volume-wise, other than Wyoming and Montana, where the mainstay of the resistance to the New World Order is. Lightly populated compared to the eastern states, but still, we're very outspoken about the fact that we don't want our guns taken away. We don't want the New World Order telling us what to do. We want to still be Christian. And, it just makes sense that they would do this in this area. If they were planning, like, for, dry desert areas, certainly there's a lot of that to train in. But they're looking more at infiltrating cities, and they're looking at infiltrating American cities, which are highly developed as far as technology and services and this kind of stuff compared to, say, cities with mud brick buildings over in the Middle East and a variety of countries that we've already been in. So why are they training us in these kind of high-tech homes unless they're planning to be using that training in high-tech homes, which America and Europe, well, certain parts of Europe, are the only places that really have that. I'm not comfortable with it. They're just, a lot of things that kind of worry me. That's all I can tell you.
Well, we definitely have to keep our eyes on this, and I had, and the listening audience knows this, I had gotten information some time ago that Jade Helm was actually going to be in all 48 of the contiguous U.S. states, unsure about Hawaii and Alaska, just under different names and under different program subsets, but essentially the same agencies, just at different levels, if you will, or the assets would be much different depending on the area. And it was after that we saw Broward County, Florida, with the PERP line, the line of people being walked, and up in Connecticut as well. So, or up in the New England area. So all of this seems to be happening, as you say, approaching some sort of event horizon, and it is kind of interesting and does bear watching. But man, yeah. All right.
Sorry, go on.
Well, no, I was going to say this. I was going to ask you about a different topic, unless you want to expand on that.
No, go ahead. What's the other topic?
Okay. All right. We had gotten, and we had talked about this early on in the show, we got a lot of emails to ask you about your thoughts about the article that we had referenced about the tech titans defying death. Whether you, I know that I think Holly linked to the article from standeo.com, but it was about the.
It was a Washington Post article. They had it out on Easter. Tech titans defy death.
Billionaires.
And the subheadline is, for centuries, explorers have searched for the world's fountain of youth. Today, billionaires believe they can create it using technology and data. And they talk about, using nanotechnology and other technological advancements to change the DNA of humans. And basically, this follows along with all the other transhumanist agendas, basically uploading if your body dies, your mind can be uploaded to a consciousness. And then aside from that, being able to attain some type of eternal life outside of
immortality.
Creation.
Right. Yeah. Your thoughts, and obviously we're getting into transhumanism here, but a multitude of questions about that, wanting to know your take on this.
Well, in my opinion, certainly there's a way to live forever after you're born. The biblical stance on that for sure. But when mankind was kicked out of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve were kicked out, it was before they could find the tree of life and eat of that and have everlasting life from that point forward. The use of the term tree does intrigue me in the modern idiom, because we have a DNA tree, shows, the ancestry of various people, and it forms a tree, again linking to DNA identities. Now, they could probably, as they say in the articles relating to this, they could change our DNA, injecting DNA altering drugs into the body, and perhaps revitalize bones and tissue, stuff like that. As far as being able to upload or download a person's consciousness into a new body, a host, I don't know whether we're at that stage of development in this, but I know that Satan is certainly, if not already, is going to build hosts, like containers, human bodies with no soul or consciousness in it, so that his troops, they can get into those bodies and use them in this world. Because a lot of Satan's troops are not, solid. They're disembodied spirits. And his main objective, is not, to help mankind. In essence, he's fighting Jesus the Christ in a big battle that's going to culminate here in the Armageddon conflict. So he's trying to get his troops to do that, and mankind is just kind of a collateral damage, useful to a degree, but a nuisance as well to Satan and his plans. Now, these globalists, these industrialists, they got all the money and stuff, they're going to, preserve their life. They certainly may have been funding research at Satan's guidance, actually. I don't know whether they know it or not, but I am positive that the Illuminists that we're aware of, the Illuminati, rich banking families, all this kind of stuff, that the majority of those people are going to be thrown on a scrap heap, destroyed by Satan and his team when they take over the planet, because he doesn't trust people who are traitors to their own, species or country or whatever. It's just, they'll get theirs, but in the meantime, they're funding projects to help Satan without realizing it, probably.
Interesting. Okay.
It is possible. Well, the tree of life is a method of living, forever from that point forward. And this was a concern to our Creator in the Garden of Eden. And that tells you it's possible. So have they found the secret? Don't know.
Very, very well. Yeah, okay. Very disconcerting. Just the attempts. Talk about the hubris, at least in my view, the hubris of these people to play God in that fashion. It's bad enough to play God by wielding the power that one has, either by election or selection. Inputting laws or allowing for and promoting eugenic things and stuff like that. But this is just beyond everything.
How do you define a god, little g god? Well, what makes a god in the ancient terminology?
Wow.
We were talking about this in the first hour a little bit. We kind of scratched the surface, but the first quote unquote little g gods were the fallen angels, I believe, and then the giants that came from their mating with the earthly women. But you have the authority of Christ, and then you have the authority of the devil, and anything who is not anybody who claims.
Well, okay, but you're a guy out there. You're a guy out there herding your sheep and just living life. How do you see or come in contact with a being and say, "Oh, that's a god"? What makes that being stand out? Technology? What?
Something supernatural or unknown to the people.
Well, think of like to me, okay, based on the way you just asked that question, like science is magic, for example. Someone who understands, someone who's got a superior intellect to you, even to the extent that it would appear that this person would have the ability to perform miracles, but using basic, or I shouldn't say basic, but using a knowledge of physics. To me, that's kind of what I was thinking.
A miracle.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
Well, no. This is just it's interesting you asked that question, because this, as Joe mentioned, although we were talking about this in the first hour, we were talking about this a little bit deeper and attempting to get to the Plato-esque, I don't know, description, if you will, of a god pharaoh, god king type person or entity.
Well, if you look at the ancients, there was a line that differentiated magic from miracles. Magic is humanly possible by someone that's clever in your community. Magic is limited. Miracles are things that are just not thought to be possible by human beings, like, for instance, raising the dead, or magically healing a body of broken bones and cuts and diseases, just waving a hand or an instrument over them, and they're well again. You have to have control of life and extending life and the quality of life above what magic could be doing in your community, because most people realize that's trickery, but very clever trickery, and that is different than a miracle, which is performing an act or acts that are just beyond your ability to say, I know how to do that, or mankind could do that. It's not like they don't give them like technical ability to do it. It's like generic ability to do it inside their makeup. These gods with their bodies can wave hands and perform magic without apparent technology. That does start to differentiate a god, little g god, from a man. Increased knowledge, huge knowledge, and power over life and death. And certainly the people who are trying to engineer their longevity and new host bodies are playing at being little g gods. Of course, the majority of Western world educated people would say, yeah, well, that's chemistry, that's physics, that's money doing it, and you didn't come from off the planet and create the earth. But when the little g god or gods appear and prove to the population of the planet that they created mankind, that starts to be in the growing G, big G. That's who created mankind. That gets people's attention. And if they can prove that to the satisfaction of the people of Earth at that time, that's how they're going to deceive. And I think that is upon us very shortly.
Well, okay, but that would entail not just an advanced knowledge by the small but growing G god, man, king, whatever, but also, or I guess I could phrase this as a question: would this also not involve the um, well, I'll just say dumbing down, or yeah, I'll just have to say it as a catch-all phrase, dumbing down of the general population to accept things without question. In other words, there's two things happening here. You've got these men slash god kings, if you will, billionaires, whatever they might be with advanced knowledge, performing their tasks at the same time in a very symbiotic way. You've got the general population being reduced in intellect and understanding by outside forces, whether they be GMOs, chemtrails, or whatever they might be, to accept these as miracles instead of trickery, or to be able to identify them as trickery. That was kind of a long way of saying, yeah, I agree.
Okay, it's something that I've had in the back burner of my mind for years about how the ancient cultures determined a being was a god. And in the main, it was technology, or the technology so far advanced that they couldn't figure a way that mankind could ever do something like that. It was just way beyond the ability of mankind. But as mankind becomes more technologically developed, as we are now, it becomes harder and harder for an individual to say that it's not possible at the hands of humans. So it weakens the infallibility, the strength of these little g gods in the minds of people. If you look at the Indian tales,
so the bar is going to have to be set higher. The bar is going to have to be set a lot higher then.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, and look at the Indian tales of their various gods fighting with each other. And when the Titans, the gods, little g gods, fight with each other, that shows you that there are fallibilities in their armor, because one can be stronger than the other. And again, you have to look at what's the common denominator that makes them gods: super technology and longevity, and a number of things that really impress the masses. And at this point, living forever is a strong thing, but that's for the very wealthy. I don't know of many poor people, oppressed people, that would want to live forever in the conditions they've got today.
Yeah, I'm sometimes I wonder myself. I mean, really, do you really want to adhere to this earth, knowing the promises that we have? Being saved, of course, through salvation. So, to me, it's almost the mercy of God that removes us at a time when we should be ready to go. Hopefully, that's the case anyway. Rather than try to maintain our presence here on this earthly terrain, and we know who this earthly terrain is ruled by, and who has title deed to this earthly domain here. So, wow, yeah, I get you. Interesting.
Yeah, I've in the last week, we're getting close to the end of this hour here. I've been introduced by mutual acquaintance to an individual that I won't name here on the air at this point, but who was shown by two beings who came to him that the Garden of Eden was in Tanzania in the Ngoro crater years ago, and told that that would be one of the refuge places for the Israelites and Christians at the tribulation time when the Antichrist pursues them. That'll be one of the places they will hide, in addition to Petra. Interesting, hey?
Yeah. As prophesied. I mean, in the larger sense, yes. Yeah. Well, Stan, it's I'll tell you, I don't know whether it's our age, at least I'm talking about you and me now, but being very, looking at everything here and trying to evaluate everything that's taking place, it seems like, I don't know, there's this quiet reflection, this quiet study of events, at least I'm drawn to, and looking at the bigger picture of things and watching everything fall into place very much in accordance with biblical prophecy. How can people deny? How can rational, sensible, intellectually, people of good intellect deny the divinity and the prophetic nature of the Bible. I just don't understand that.
Have you been watching what's going on the History Channel and places like that on the satellite broadcast television like Dish and DirecTV? These programs where they are very obviously denigrating the divinity of Jesus and motivations of. I mean, I sat and watched a couple over the weekend. I just, we watch Ben-Hur every Easter. It's just kind of a thing. And then you look at all the other stuff that comes up in the last year or two that they've made new series and things. You got to be very careful what you believe, because you got to read the Bible to see where they're deceiving. They'll start out with things that are fact from the Bible, and then they'll lean this way or that way. With the image you see might kind of say, oh, that person was a weak character without ever saying it. It's just subtle conditioning to turn people against the divinity of Jesus and of our Creator. I'm just astounded that they're doing it so obviously and so rapidly.
Precisely, and they do these things for purpose, obviously, and I do believe that there is a huge fight against this awakening that much of the population is at least beginning to experience, if not collectively in pockets, perhaps, but or at certain levels. But I think that we're seeing a pushback, or at least an initiative to well, even the movie. That was the subject of Bill O'Reilly's book,
Killing Jesus.
Killing Jesus. I happened to catch part of that, and that left me unsettled. Did you happen to see that, Stan, on Easter night?
No, the discussion I heard about it from Bill O'Reilly, on his show there, and various other pre-discussions of it, pre-release discussions, kind of convinced me I didn't want to see it. I just felt it was going to be bad.
Yeah, a good choice. It left me the impression that I received, and I'm not a film critic. I don't have time for that, and I rarely watch it in movies. But one thing that it left me, two things that I felt about that movie. Number one, I felt that it was deliberately removing the spirituality and divinity of Jesus from the man. Okay, it was a deliberate attempt to really extract the spirituality, divinity, the holiness from Jesus. And the second thing that struck me was when the portions I did see, and this is toward the beginning, right after John the Baptist baptized Jesus. It was around the time when Jesus was standing and looking, and I think it was John the Baptist said, "Don't you know why you were called?" Or some question like that. Jesus looked surprised, like he had no clue as to why he was here. He didn't realize his mission on life, And I thought, my goodness, that's not biblically
That's very
accurate.
Wrong.
Yeah.
No, when he was a teenager and sitting there in the temple discussing, the scriptures with the sages, he was way above his years, but he was being about his father's business. He told his parents, I'm about my father's business here. So he knew even at that age, and it's in the scriptures.
Mm. Yeah, they seem to be born
enough. What you've said, what you said about this, I mean, it's part of several movies and videos and series that are being made to make Jesus a political, a secular individual who tried to do things to fulfill prophecy so that it looked like he was, the Messiah. And it's just so wrong, so wrong.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Joe and Stan, the other thing too, although this, I consider this just a mere footnote, I was surprised when I learned that the actor who played Jesus is a Muslim. I don't know how that works. I mean, I really don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wondered about that myself.
I don't know, brother. Well, we we kept you after. I apologize, but it's just so great to it's so great to kick back with you and just talk and about very serious issues, but really gain a lot of insight. We really appreciate the opportunity for doing that.
Yeah, you might look up on the internet too. I can't remember exactly when it is, but I'll see if my calendar tells me. But the Feast of First Fruits.
Yes.
You know, I think May the 23rd, somewhere around late May this year, is it's time of year that I always kind of look forward to the harvest of the bride, you know, the rapture. And so between the Passover, Easter time, and that date, whatever it varies from year to year, you know, I kind of keep looking up extra hard, saying, okay, is this the year that you're going to be grabbing off the first fruits of the harvest? Are we going to be harvested? You know.
Interesting.
And, yeah, I hope that's.
Hey,
yeah, well, Holly's got the first fruits in May, late May. Hollies are. What date is that? Okay, and then after that, down in May, there's another one. Yeah, it might be in Shavuot. Feast of. Yeah, hold on a second here. I'm just pulling up over here and see if I can find it here. Okay, the Feast of Weeks, you said, okay, that's May 23rd, 24th. I think that was it. But counting the Omer starts April 5th and goes through May 23rd. I think the end of counting the Omer is the culmination of the Feast of First Fruits, which starts April 4th and 5th. It's when they go out and they get the first crops in, the first grain, and they purify it, and that they give thanks for the beginning of the harvest, and then later on it's done. But I'll have to look up a few things and talk about that next week if you wish. But anyway, it's just a personal thing that you know I kind of observe and looked up extra hard during this time.
Very, very interesting.
Right.
Very good. Yeah. I mean, it's you're always welcome to talk about this and to I mean, we like to bounce things around, and frankly, I did not connect any events, regardless of what they were, with the first fruits, as you put them, or as you stated. So, yeah, definitely we can talk about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the name of it alone, the first fruits, tells you that about a harvest, and it's the early part of the harvest, which I interpret to be the rapture of the church at that point, and then the rest of the harvest comes later on as they mature, you know, as the field matures, and you have a great crop there, which is the believers that come out of the tribulation.
Okay, very good. Well, yeah, interested in having you inform us with your thoughts on that anytime. All right, my brother. Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for your time again tonight. It's great. Like I said, sitting around here, just talking. It's amazing the information that you are able to convey, despite us being in the way. So,
not really. Look, we're just having a fireside chat, and you know, it's kind of the best way to discuss these things, because, like they teach in the Jewish schools, you know, for the rabbis, the yeshiva, they sit and they debate these things. Why do you think this date? Why do you think that meant this? Back and forth during the day while they're at school. And then as the school day ends, these budding new rabbis wrap arms around each other and say, well, Irv, hey, yeah, okay, Irving, I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll debate something else. It's great. You coming over for dinner next week? Yeah, fine. And that's the kind of thing that we're doing here, is we can discuss these rabbit holes that are all over the place and still come out happy and hopefully better educated when we finish.
Well, in time spent with you, we are all better educated. Let me tell you. Joe, go ahead.
Well,
absolutely.
Thank you for that.
And
all right,
thank you,
guys.
Stan. God bless you and Holly, and you guys take care of yourself. And God willing, we'll see you next week.
Lord willing.
Indeed.
God bless you now. Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother.
You guys take care. That was Stan Deyo from standeo.com. Visit and bookmark his website. And what day did you say the TV appearances were?
April 28th.
April 28th.
Yeah, and that's I'll get additional information from Stan and Holly, but we'll definitely put some links up to the shows and even to the YouTubes when they come out, because to watch, I got to tell you, to watch Stan rather than listen to him, to watch him is really it's fantastic. He is, man, he's a great speaker, and he can really get his point across too when you visually when you can see him visually.
I'm sure it's Gary Stearman and Bob Ulrich. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic, content-rich show.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. We're going to take your phone calls in the next, ladies and gentlemen, to our, I don't want to say third and final hour, but we got about 35 minutes left. We're going to be taking your phone calls throughout this hour or half hour. And we're going to start with area code 319. 319, we're coming to you first. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report. 5 minutes left. We're going to be taking your phone calls throughout this hour.
We'll let it cycle through
We're
here.
going to start with area code 319.
There you go.
Yeah, hello.
Good
Yeah.
evening.
Can you turn your device
You got
off
it,
there
I
that
think.
you're listening? Okay.
Yes, sir. It's off. I was wondering, have you ever watched Daniel's Timeline from Dewey Bruton? It's on YouTube.
Oh man, we've watched so many. It sounds familiar. Is that like 45 minutes or?
It's a 2-hour showing. But
okay.
what he said was he was saying in 2010. Well, Dewey Bruton has passed away, first of all, but he made the video in 2005. But he was saying Revelation 12. I can't remember the exact day, but it was something like in 2010. And he's saying, like, if you were in Israel at 6 in the morning, you looked up at the sky, it would have, Revelation 12 would have been fulfilled at that point. Anyway, he was saying March 22nd, 2013 was the mid-date of tribulation. And I've looked up March 22nd, 2013, and Obama was in Israel. He was where Christ was born. I think he toured it with Yasser Arafat's people who desecrated the, I don't know, was it a church or a manger or whatever it is now, but I don't know. Then you look at the Shemitah, and then he's saying there's a Jubilee coming up in 2017. I just wonder if that's possibly when Christ is going to return.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's been a kind of he was continues to be a kind of a magnet of controversy with his end times prophecy timeline, and his claim, the tribulation started, as you indicated, the spring equinox, I believe it was, in 2013. And so look,
another interesting thing, when you had Obama at in Israel, but you also had the Pope came into power, I think, a few days before that. So Pope Francis. So.
No, that's true. I mean, there are so many people striving to connect the dots. It's interesting, and it's something to look at. But I don't know. But I know of the individual. But assigning the beginning of the tribulation to a date specific, and for the reasons you mentioned, I've got to say, man, I've got some reservations about that. But beyond that, the events are interesting nonetheless, and I do believe they do fit into a prophetic timeline. I'm just not so sure it's his.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
Very good.
I hear you.
All right, my brother.
Anything else?
Great. Nope, that's it.
All right.
Thanks
That's
for the
it.
call.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You have a great night. All right. We're going to go next to area code 214. 214, we're coming to you now. You are live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hey guys.
Hold on.
There you go.
We're coming back. We're going to bring you right back. There's like 1,000.
Hello.
How you doing that?
All right, we're going to have to come back to you. I don't know if this is a BTR thing, but that was just weird. 210. 214, hang on there, or call back if you can. That was just very strange. 210, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hey, how are you guys? I'm sorry, I'm kind of laughing from that last one.
Wow.
Echo chamber.
Strange.
Yeah, it was.
What a ride.
What I wanted to talk about was Google's purchase of Boston Dynamics and some of these mechanical creatures that they're building. And if you marry that up with Joel Chapter 2, it's absolutely uncanny in its precision of what they've created at this company with these robotic dogs and animals and horses and things, and how they march in a straight line. They cannot be jostled from their position. They do not. I mean, it's words right out of Scripture that follow precisely what these videos show of these, like Big Dog and these other robotic creatures from Boston Dynamics. Kind of fascinating if you ever want to watch those videos and marry that up with Joel Chapter 2.
Okay, Joel Chapter 2. I do know that Boston Dynamics, Google, they were the subject of a number of media pieces. Time was one, The Guardian was another. This, over the last couple of months, and some of the Atlas humanoid robots and dogs and such, extremely interesting. But I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, man, is this what part of which that Russ Dizdar was talking about, in addition to so Joel Chapter 2 references what?
And it references these creatures that clamber over walls, and they do not break rank. They you just need to read it and then watch the video, the YouTube video. It marries up perfectly with what these mechanical robots are capable of, and they march in single file. They don't have a leader, yet it's almost like they were driven by software. Second thing I wanted to ask about was I haven't heard much about Loretta Fuddy recently from you guys, or Butter Dezillion and her research. I was wondering if there was a pause in that research or analysis she was doing, or if you had any further information, because I do understand that aircraft was shredded.
It was.
And highly strange for that to occur in a accident investigation scenario. And I've called about this in the past, and I just wanted to know if you guys were aware that, bizarrely, they took that airplane apart in a very unconventional manner.
They did, and Dr. Corsi, Jerome Corsi, and I were speaking about this. Butter Dezillion, fantastic, marvelous researcher. She has done so much investigation and provided so much detail, again, appearing on this program. I'll just say this without giving too much away. We're going to be having some stuff come out as quickly as possible. There are a few things that are connected to a larger, something as big that Dr. Jerome Corsi is working on as well. So, yes, and we are aware of the disposition of the aircraft, which very unconventionally, exactly, was shredded and crushed, or crushed and shredded, however you want to describe it. But yes.
Last comment was I was taxiing out from San Antonio International today in a Southwest flight, and I noticed a ramp full of Blackhawks and also some of the attack helicopters. I was a little bit reminiscent of some early vestiges of Jade Helm taking shape here in South Texas.
Okay. Have you seen anything in action yet, or just the prepositioning of the assets or mobilizing the assets?
Well, we live out from San Antonio a ways, and there are not far from a particular military base called Camp Bullis, which is particularly unusual in its own right. You ought to take a peek into that someday and try to investigate what's going on at that location, Bullis.
Okay.
And there's a lot of helicopter activity that has increased in the area. I wouldn't say it's a dramatic increase, but I certainly notice them. I think it's more active than it has been in the past.
All right. Well, we'll keep we will keep our eyes on that, and definitely watch. And thank you for bringing up Loretta Fuddy, because I think people need to be constantly reminded that there's a larger conspiracy, indeed a conspiracy going on with respect to Obama and Fuddy and Abercrombie and all of that cast of those cast of characters. So we'll keep you posted on that. But thank you for bringing that up.
Jerome Corsi had a very clear indication of who Obama's father was from his presentation at the Orlando Prophecy Conference, and it was the founder of the Subud organization. Unlike what a lot of people are saying, this poet for this communist poet from Hawaii, what was his name? I can't think of it right now.
Frank Marshall Davis. Is that who you're talking about? Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. But it was the founder of Subud that certainly, genetics don't tend to lie.
Well, Jerome, Jerry's going to be coming on our program here at some point. We had the occasion to swap some notes and some research, and I've got to say that the findings with respect to Obama and the lineage linking Subud, the person, as well as the organization, to both Stanley Ann Dunham as well as Obama, are just they're hard to argue. And the physical, it was a physical appearance of the Subud founder. Wow, it's pretty uncanny.
Last thought is the killing Jesus comment from O'Reilly. First of all, Jesus laid his life down. Nobody killed him. It was a conscious choice, and the lamb slain before the foundation of the world. Just want to correct a little bit of the nomenclature of O'Reilly's book. It's an error at face. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Very good call.
Yeah, and exactly right about that comment on Bill O'Reilly's book, and it does say that. The lamb slain from the foundation of the world.
The movie, just very quickly I think it was at the very end, identified or made mention of the Catholic Church, the Mason. It had the word Mason in there, referencing the Masonic organization. I don't know how many people caught that in the narrative at the culmination of that film, but I thought that was rather interesting.
Let's go to 626. I believe this is John from Pasadena. John, is that you?
It is I, Doug and Joe. The peace of our Lord be upon you both. How are you guys doing tonight?
Very well, sir. Good to hear from you.
Good.
And you had John, I'm not sure how long. I think this past weekend there was a suicide. Was there not in your area of town?
Yeah. If it would be okay with you, let's if we could side table that.
Sure.
For maybe next time, because gentlemen, I and respectfully, Doug, but I called tonight just to share something quickly, of perhaps a little bit of a personal nature, but I kind of feel like I've been given a word for the Hagman family tonight,
right.
If I may. So, Doug, when you and I spoke last week, I indicated to you that I've been doing some pretty heavy research on the Luciferian, Hollywood history and just sort of really, kind of going down some dark paths and doing so prayerfully, but it's been pretty rough research, And so yesterday I was working at one of the studios and really having a bad day. We've got so many good things going on and so many exciting things, some of which you're certainly aware of, and I was really feeling accused by the enemy yesterday, and just having one of those days where Satan's using a lot of doubt, to permeate your mind and mess with you. And one of the friends I've made through HH Connections, he's a street minister in Philadelphia. His name's Eric, and he's a rapper, and he's out on the streets with his brothers in Christ every day, ministering to people in Philly. And he called me when I was at the studio yesterday, and I couldn't talk to him, but we wound up speaking tonight, and we've talked a couple, 3-4 times now. And I got to tell you, Doug and Joe, this gentleman who I've never met, he's 34 years old, ministering on the streets. We had the most blessed conversation, and he ministered to my spirit in such a Christ-like way. It was like we had church together from one side of the country to the other. It was really amazing. And so what I wanted to just quickly share with folks tonight is, after the Dave Hodges show last night, and just take a look at Drudge Report, I mean, we're living in absolutely crazy times. And what I wanted to reach out to everybody tonight to remind everybody of is not one single person that's hearing my voice right now can carry this alone. You can't. It doesn't matter how strong you are or how broad your shoulders are or how long you've been awake. Nobody can carry what's going on in this world alone. Wouldn't you agree, gentlemen?
100%, John. The weight is too heavy. Go on.
And we need that fellowship, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I just wanted to just share that with folks that, we've talked about HH Connections a lot. I'm not going to go into a long description of it tonight, but basically if you want to enjoy the kind of fellowship that a whole bunch of us have been, it's HH Connections, 2 H's, Connections with a plural, @StartMail. And I just really want to emphasize that it's been such a blessing all the way around, because this remnant body, this body of Christ is actually becoming one. We have the technology now where it doesn't matter where you're located anymore. You can be in Costa Rica or the French Pyrenees or in Philadelphia. We're right there in a split second, in just a split second. And I just really want to encourage people to keep 2 things in mind. Number 1, you can't do this without Christ. You just can't. And number 2, I've been awake for 6 years, and Doug and Joe, we've had conversations. You know where our levels of awareness are at. And
right.
I personally just wanted to say I can't carry this alone, and I don't think anybody else can either. So, folks, if you need prayer, if you need fellowship, it's here for you, and it's really working. And I just had such a blessed time. This guy Eric in Philadelphia, man, he just ministered to me so greatly tonight. And before that, I had a chance to speak with Chance for a couple minutes, and it was the same thing. And I wouldn't have met him without the show either. So I just wanted to share that tonight with people, just on a personal note, guys.
Well, thank you, and thanks for sharing. It means a lot to us, and I got to tell you that earlier today, my wife and I were talking about you, John, in the context of HH Connections, and she said, well, she asked me, she said, how does he do it? How does he do it? Anyway,
well,
I'll
tell you quickly how. I appreciate that, and please give my highest regards to your wife, Doug. But I'll tell you how I do it. I do it with great pleasure, because every day, let me tell you guys, there are groups of Hagmann listeners. You know how sometimes, Doug, you talk about that one cafe, I think it's in Idaho or somewhere,
yes,
where they listen to the show. I always love that mental picture that it creates. And folks, I'm telling you, there's a group that's together now in Austin, Texas. There's another one forming up midpoint between Salt Lake City and Provo in Utah. It's hard work. HH Connections takes a lot of hours each week, but the blessings are so huge. You meet people and talk with people, and it's not just like regular conversation. They minister to you. When you get off the phone with them, your heart is lighter, and you just feel better. I sorry for the lack of eloquence tonight, guys, but I just wanted to share that. Folks, nobody at this stage of the game can carry this alone. Nobody.
No.
Not Doug, Joe, Steve Quayle, Paul McGuire, me, Chance. Nobody can. You need the Lord, and you need fellowship. So we're here for you. And again, thank you for your trust in us, guys. I really appreciate it.
Brother, You're doing just a tremendous job, and we thank you so very much. And we're praying for you. God bless you, my friend, and thanks for all you do. And we're not going to get through this alone, and certainly we're not going to get through the run-up to whatever's coming alone either.
No, that's exactly right, Doug, and I'll just make this my final remark. It's not a time now, folks, for being a tough guy or being Mr. Broad Shoulders guy. It's just time to admit that you need the Lord and that you need the fellowship of other believers to keep you strong, to keep you healthy, to keep reminding you that there's joy in this, that like you say all the time, Doug, we're fighting this from a winning position. It's already written. It's done. We've just got to remain courageous. We got to remain strong in the blood. And the only way to do that is with the fellowship. And so I just wanted to share that tonight, guys.
Amen, brother. Thanks, Sean. And,
all right.
and until next time. All right, buddy.
Have a good night.
You bet.
All right. Area code. Let's see. I want to see if we can
go back to the sound effect one. Whoa.
Yeah, I don't see them here.
Okay. Yeah, that was, I don't know what that was, but.
Let's go to area code 724. 724, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hi, Doug. Hi, Joe. It's Jennifer from Pittsburgh.
Jennifer from Pittsburgh. God bless you. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, I was when I drove down to Florida to see you guys.
I know. I remember you.
I suffered great. I've been suffering, but I'm making it. But it was so worth it. I was,
suffering physically or suffering elsewise?
I was under so much attack, Doug. Oh, gosh. I mean, God really has something going on. I think we're being pruned, to say the least, for the untimely season of these figs falling. I don't know. I really do. I feel like I've been pruned a lot. So I don't know about you guys. You feel like you're being a little ripened and pruned a little?
Yeah, with not with pruning shears either, but with
no.
What do you call those power saws? But yes, I know what you feel. And folks, Jennifer was a young woman I met, and in fact she sat in one of the closed interviews that we did down in Florida. So we're under attack.
Besides the sleep deprivation and everything else that came with it, I'm surviving like you guys, and I think the trip really taught me so much about how important it is for us to see each other one-on-one. As much as we use the internet, I mean, I'm a big believer that we have to get back to doing things manually, like the way we did it in the 1980s. And I'm not sure, but there's coming a time we're going to have to learn this crash course. And I also came to understand something after listening to your show last night with Dave Hodges and piggybacking on what Stan said tonight. You guys all should go watch the last Sid Roth video. He teaches on the book of Esther. Many times we look to Revelation and Daniel, which are very key scriptures about prophecy, but he did a study, and it's very fluid. I probably wouldn't be able to repeat how well he explained it, but everything that we hear about the falling of the untimely figs, that the season is coming, the harvest that Stan was referring to. I believe that there's, of course, what he was saying about the harvest. There's many harvests throughout this season, but the untimely harvest, like the untimely figs that would fall. And I've been really seeing some things that from last night. I was so shaken to my core about what we heard last night. So I had to look to the Lord, and what the Lord revealed to me in last night is that we're really going to rely on our angels to fight this war. Then we're going to really look to the carnal weapons that are going to be used, the conventional war weapons that are used. We're going to have to really look to our warring angels to fight a lot of these battles that we foresee, meaning you're praying for your protection, praying for Steve Quayle's protection, Alex Jones's. I could go on the list. Dave Hodges. We're really going to have to look to the angels now. And the Lord spoke to me in that respect last night because I felt this very intense fierceness this morning about it as well. And that's why I think if you look to what he just did in this video, you're going to be tremendously hopeful. You, per se, people like you, Doug and Joe, who really are fighting the front lines of this battle, but you can't do it without the warring angels, Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, you know.
Right.
You really need the angels to start helping you fight these battles and really lean to the Lord in that direction, how to pray and strategic praying. And that's just what really came over me in the book Esther. Talks about how Queen Esther, when she was referring to, when Benjamin Netanyahu went to address the Congress, there was we're missing something very significant because Queen Esther in the book of Esther really lays out the case of that the Lord will come when the fullness of the Gentiles. The fullness of Gentiles means maturity. So you can go ahead and go to the Sid Roth video. He does the end time message,
right.
And it is very fluid. But I really, really think you'll get what I'm saying when you watch the video, and you'll be very hopeful for people like that who are on the front lines, like you, Paul McGuire, Stan Deyo, Steve Quayle, Dave Hodges. You will get something from this, and I hope that will get you through that, you know, those tough days that you're really feeling like the adversary is coming at you head on. Any one of us right now know this. We need that hope to
we do.
keep on hanging on and keep on keeping on.
Okay. And that was the latest Sid Roth video you're saying, correct?
Yes.
All
yes.
Right.
I know you.
Okay.
I know the people that are sensing this. I know the fear that we, probably not the fear that the evil fear, the more godly fear, that urge that the Lord needs to return soon, you know. But there is a message in that, about an end time message in that, about and we got to look to Israel. We got to pray for Israel, because soon as Israel returns back to the Lord, which you're seeing right now in New York and throughout the whole United States and parts of Israel and throughout the world, is the Jewish people are coming back to the Lord. That is the fullness of the Gentiles, because when the Jewish people come back to the Lord, then you'll see the untimely figs fall. And now you'll see. Okay, I don't know what you will find from that, but I know you will find it. I'm a Messianic Christian. I know there's a lot of Jewish people around me that are coming to the Lord, and I've never seen anything like that. So we're really close.
Very good.
So I wanted to leave off with that.
Thank you, Jennifer from Pittsburgh, and thank you very much for making the sacrifice to go down there and to attend the Prophecy in the News Conference. And God bless you for doing that. And thank you very much for this call. Good information.
Yes, shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, indeed. All right.
Have a great night.
Joe, what Jennifer was talking about very quickly was, I've got this mental image. If you're in the right place, if you and I are, and this goes for all of the watchmen and the majority of the listeners, I believe, if you're in the right place where you're supposed to be, just imagine like a gunfight, you know, where people are, you've got a gun and people are shooting from behind you and then in front of you, okay, and shooting at one another. And let's say, multiple gun battles, but just one gun battle, where you see people shooting at you, but then falling down from gunfire from behind you and beside you, to the extent so quick that number one, when it's all over, you can use your hands to check your body to see if you've been hit. The mental image I'm trying to create, and then seeing the people fall down in front of you, not even knowing who shot them when you didn't fire a shot. To me, that's being in the right place, being where God put you in under His divine covering. I just thought I'd try to create that mental picture for you. That's kind of what I think about when Jennifer said what she was saying about protection.
We have 6 minutes left, 5 minutes left. Let's go to area code 903. 903, we're going to finish with your call tonight.
Greetings, Doug and Joe. How are you?
Very well. It's up to you to take us out. What's going on?
Okay, well, I just want to call and say I really appreciate you guys, and some pretty serious stuff you're covering, but we need to keep it on our mind that only with our eyes will we see the punishment of the wicked, and we do need protection from the angels, and we do need to be in the right place at the right time. And,
indeed, we do.
John is very encouraging tonight too, because he's putting together some relationships. Like every night after the show, my wife and I will call somebody real close to me, and we'll talk about what we heard over the night. And that person's several states away, but those H&H connections are probably pretty good. If I wasn't already pretty well connected, I'd probably join in that myself.
Well, that's great. Please do me a favor tonight. Don't be too hard on us, okay? Just.
Oh, brother, I love you. Don't you know that?
No, I know.
I haven't been too hard on you, have I?
No, not at all. No, and I say that not necessarily tongue in cheek. Sometimes, you know what, folks, and caller, let me tell you something. It's sitting on this side. Sometimes we feel like I don't know. We've been cracked upside the head a few times and bloodied up a bit for things that are unseen and unspoken, but nonetheless, experienced here. That's all I'll say.
Oh man, if I've come across wrong, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, not at all. No, I was I was teasing you about.
Okay.
So no.
I can be a little aggressive at times. I recognize that.
No,
go ahead, bro.
No. I just again, I was thinking. Here you are on the phone saying, "Can you believe that Doug Hagman, has the audacity to sit behind a microphone? He can't even form coherent sentences sometimes." No, I'm just okay. Anyway, no, it's self-deprecating humor there.
No, you're all right, man. I'll tell you, you're doing a good thing for the body of Christ. You're doing a good thing for people that are going to become the body of Christ, because the good news does go out through your show, and it comes down by facing reality. We don't turn away from sin until we recognize how bad sin is, and that repentance, that turning around, the reverse course, however you want to say that, you got to know something's wrong before you turn away from it. And when like last night, talking about the pastors that are part of the FEMA camp counselors and stuff, everybody recognizes that what they're going to have to do if they want to keep their 501c3 statuses, that's just wicked. But if they don't hear it from you guys and from Stan and from Dave and from Steve, then they don't know they're wrong, so they won't turn around. You guys are putting out good news, and there's some crowns laid up for y'all. There are, all you guys.
Thank you. And we're just really caught up in the moment in seeing. When I say that, I mean it's not that we're tied to earthly things only, but we're caught up in the moment because we see so much going on, and really, hopefully, through our actions and deeds and words and programs, hopefully, will cause people to be moved out of the way, or help them get out of the way of what's coming. And part of that is repentance, and a big part of that is repentance. We've got to repent, man, and pray, because we're not going to, and you know what John said too. We're not going to get through this alone. We need the assistance of others. It's
yes,
wow.
we do. I'm glad you said that. That brings me up to an old subject that I want to bring back up. We do need the assistance of others, including Hagman Investigative Services.
Right.
And I understand that y'all are at P.O. Box 9534 in Erie, Pennsylvania.
That's correct.
16505.
That's correct.
I'm going to say that again in case somebody's got pen and paper handy. That's Hagman Investigative Services Incorporated. Post Office Box 9534, Erie, Pennsylvania, 16505. So here I go with my
it's not very roomy in this box,
Make
by the
it
way.
happen.
Sorry, I didn't.
Hey. Well, you know what? We all do need each other, and none of us can be lifted up in.
Yeah. Yep.
We lost him.
How'd that happen?
I don't know.
Well, my brother, thank you for the call. Actually, we're up against the end of the program anyway. Thank you for that call. Somehow you dropped off.
You know what's weird? And when the call drops on our screen, we'll get a blue drop-down thing that says caller area.
Right.
That didn't pop up. So that's odd.
All right. Well, folks, that'll do it for us tonight. Tomorrow night,
Dr. Michael Lake.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic.
Author of the Shinar Directive. And
or if you're like me, Shinar Directive, that's how I pronounce it.
Many other accomplishments, and we'll be talking with him before the show, but he'll be on with us tomorrow for the whole show. Not going to want to miss it. He's an author and an evangelist, and
very relevant to stuff going on today. That book is so relevant, and he's going to get into a lot of the information from that. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for all you did tonight, and folks, thanks for being with us. God bless.
Till tomorrow. Stay safe. Have a good night.
Good night.